Rowan Cade stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his Manhattan penthouse, watching the city blur 40 stories below, his hands pressed flat against the glass. Cold, solid, real. Everything his son's pain wasn't. Behind him, Ari sat on the marble floor, 5 years old and trembling. The boy's fingers hovered over his scalp, reaching, then pulling back like he'd touched fire. His lips moved without sound. Again. The same silent pattern he'd repeated every morning for 6 months. Rowan turned. "Buddy, please. Just tell Daddy what hurts." Ari's eyes stayed down. His small chest rose and fell too fast. The billionaire crossed the room and knelt, expensive suit creasing against Italian tile. He reached for his son's shoulder. Ari flinched so hard his body folded inward. Rowan's jaw tightened. 17 doctors, 23 specialists from Boston to Seattle. Every single one had shrugged, smiled politely, and suggested therapy for childhood anxiety. Stress from being a billionaire's kid, they said. Psychosomatic, they wrote in charts Rowan read at 3 in the morning when sleep wouldn't come. Before we continue the story, kindly tell us where are you watching from, and subscribe for you to get more and part 2 of this story. Thanks, let's continue. But Rowan knew better. You don't build 3 unicorn startups by ignoring patterns, and the pattern here screamed one word: terror. Pure, unfiltered terror lived in his son's body every single day. Ari's hands rose again toward his head. This time they made contact. He whimpered. "Stop," Rowan whispered, grabbing the boy's wrists gently. "Stop hurting yourself." But Ari wasn't hurting himself. Something else was doing that. Rowan just couldn't see it yet. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Vera appeared in the doorway, calm and composed in her pressed uniform. The family's childcare specialist for 2 years. Trusted. Reliable. Or so the background checks promised. "Mr. Cade, the car's ready for your meeting," she said softly. Rowan glanced at his son, then at his watch. A board meeting in 30 minutes. Investors flying in from Singapore. Millions on the line. He stood slowly. "Keep him comfortable. Please." Vara nodded, that same gentle smile she always wore. "Of course." Rowan walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and looked back one more time. Ari sat exactly where he'd left him, hands now covering his face completely. The elevator doors closed, and Vara's smile faded the moment he disappeared. Across the city, in a cramped Washington Heights apartment, 8-year-old Mirai buttoned her school uniform while her mother, Chennai, rushed through the kitchen grabbing cleaning supplies. "Baby, I need you to come with me today," Chennai said, stuffing bottles into a bag. "Your after-school program canceled again." Mirai grabbed her backpack. "Where we going?" "The penthouse job. That billionaire man. But you stay quiet, hear me? Don't touch nothing. Don't ask for nothing." Mirai nodded, but her mind was already somewhere else. She'd learned early that rich people's homes told stories their mouths never did. Dust patterns, scratch marks, things left in wrong places. Her grandmother used to say she had noticing eyes. Today, those eyes would see something no one else could. But neither Mirai nor her mother knew that yet. They just knew they needed the money, and the billionaire needed his penthouse cleaned. What neither of them knew was that by sunset, everything would shatter. Have you ever ignored something because everyone told you it wasn't real? Drop a comment below. Mirai pressed her face against the town car window as it rolled through streets she'd only seen on TV. Her mother sat rigid beside her, hands folded tight in her lap. Chennai always did that when she was nervous. Squeezed her fingers until the knuckles went pale. "Huh, remember what I said," Chennai whispered as they pulled up to the building. "Invisible." The doorman didn't smile. He just nodded and waved them through to a service elevator hidden behind the main lobby. Mirai watched the floor numbers climb. 20, 30, 40. Her ears popped. When the doors opened, she stepped into a world that didn't feel real. White marble stretched in every direction. Furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. Windows so big they swallowed the sky. But Mirai didn't care about any of that. She cared about the sound, a soft whimpering, like a puppy trapped somewhere it couldn't escape. "Stay in the kitchen," Chennai said, already pulling out cleaning supplies. "I'll be done in 2 hours." Mirai nodded, but her feet had other plans. She followed the sound, moving quietly through hallways lined with modern art worth more than her entire building. The whimpering grew louder. She found him in the private garage. Not the kind with oil stains and tools. The kind with cars that cost more than houses, arranged like sculptures under perfect lighting. The boy sat on a small wooden stool, head down, shoulders shaking. His hands covered his face, but she could see his fingers trembling. Mirai stopped 3 feet away. "Hey." The boy didn't move. "You okay?" Still nothing, but his breathing changed, faster now. Mirai took 1 step closer. "I'm Mirai. What's your name?" The boy's hands lowered just enough for her to see his eyes. Red, swollen, terrified. "Ari," he whispered. It was the first word he'd spoken to anyone in days. Mirai sat down on the concrete floor, not caring about her uniform. "This your dad's garage?" Ari nodded. "Cool cars." She wasn't interested in cars, but she'd learned that sometimes people just needed someone to be there. Not fix things. Just be there. Ari's hands went back toward his head, then stopped mid-air. He winced. Mirai's eyes narrowed. That movement. She'd seen it before, back when her cousin got lice from a sleepover. That same reaching, then pulling back, like touching something that burned and itched at the same time. "Your head hurt?" she asked. Ari's eyes went wide. He nodded slowly, like admitting it might make it worse. "Can I look?" He hesitated. Then, for reasons he didn't understand himself, he nodded again. Mirai stood and walked behind him. His hair was clean, expensive shampoo clean. But when she leaned closer, she saw his scalp was red in places. Irritated, and when he shifted on the stool, she caught it. Movement. Small, deliberate, wrong. Her stomach dropped. "Ari, when's the last time someone checked your hair real close?" He shrugged. "Vara says I'm fine." "Who's Vara?" "She takes care of me when Dad works." Mirai's jaw tightened. She'd met plenty of adults who didn't actually take care of kids they were supposed to watch. Her noticing eyes had caught that pattern years ago. "I think maybe Vara needs to look again," Mirai said carefully. Ari's whole body went stiff. "She gets mad when I say something's wrong." And there it was. The thing adults never wanted to hear. The thing that made everything make sense. Mirai knelt in front of him. "I'm gonna tell my mom, and she's gonna tell your dad, okay?" Ari grabbed her wrist. "He won't believe you." "Nobody does." For a moment, Mirai understood exactly how small he felt in this giant penthouse, how invisible his pain had been to people who should have seen it. "I believe you," she said, and in that moment Ari cried for the first time in front of another person, not silent tears, real ones, because someone finally saw him. Do you think adults ever really listen to what kids are trying to say? The garage door opened, heavy footsteps, expensive shoes on concrete. Rowan Cade froze. His son sat on the stool, face buried in his hands. A little black girl knelt in front of him, her hand on his shoulder, and Ari was crying. Actually crying. Out loud, something he hadn't done in months. "What's going on?" Rowan's voice came out sharper than he meant. Fear always did that to him. Mirai stood slowly, hands at her sides. "I was just talking to him." Chennai appeared behind Rowan, eyes wide with panic. "Mirai, I told you to stay in the kitchen." "Mom, something's wrong with his head." Rowan stepped forward. "Excuse me?" Mirai didn't back down. She'd learned that telling the truth fast was better than telling it scared. His scalp's all red, and he keeps trying to touch it. But it hurts. And I think I saw something moving. The room went silent. Rowan stared at his son. Ari, is that true? Ari nodded, still crying. Rowan's entire body went cold. 6 months. 6 months of specialists and scans and blood tests, and a little girl figured it out in 10 minutes. He crossed the garage in 3 strides, kneeling beside Ari. Buddy, I need to look at your head. Is that okay? Ari hesitated, then nodded. Rowan's hands shook as he parted his son's hair. At first he didn't see anything, just the redness Mirai mentioned. But then he leaned closer and his breath caught. Movement. Tiny. Deliberate. A cluster of something that shouldn't be there. His vision blurred. Not from tears, from rage so pure it turned his hands into fists. How long? His voice barely worked. How long has this been here? Ari whispered. I don't know. Rowan stood slowly, pulling out his phone. He didn't look at Chennai or Mirai. He couldn't, because if he did, he'd have to admit that his money, his power, his carefully built empire meant absolutely nothing when it came to protecting his own child. He dialed his personal doctor. It rang once. Get to my penthouse, now, and bring a dermatology specialist. He hung up, turned to Chennai. I need you to stay, both of you. Chennai nodded quickly. Of course, Mr. Cade. Rowan looked at Mirai, really looked at her, this 8-year-old girl who saw what 17 doctors missed. Thank you, he said quietly. Mirai just nodded, but Rowan's mind was already somewhere else. He was thinking about Vera, about the way she always assured him Ari was fine, about how she'd been alone with his son every single day, and about the security cameras he'd installed in every room except the garage. He turned toward the elevator. I'll be right back. Ari grabbed his wrist. Dad, don't leave. Rowan knelt again, pulling his son into a hug for the first time in weeks. Ari didn't flinch this time. He just held on. I'm not going anywhere, buddy. I promise. But in his head, Rowan was already reviewing footage, already putting pieces together, already realizing that trust was the most expensive mistake he'd ever made. And somewhere in the penthouse, Vara was cleaning up after herself, humming softly like she'd done every day for 6 months, completely unaware that everything was about to collapse. Have you ever trusted someone completely, only to realize you never really knew them? Mirai's fingers parted Ari's hair one more time, slowly, carefully, like handling something that might break. Then she saw it clearly. Not just movement, a trail, a living, crawling pattern spreading across his scalp in sections that looked angry and inflamed. Her stomach twisted so hard she had to swallow to keep from gagging. Oh no, she whispered. Ari started shaking. What? What is it? She didn't answer, because saying it out loud would make it real, and making it real meant accepting that adults who were supposed to protect him had let this happen. Rowan stepped closer, phone still pressed to his ear. What did you find? Mirai looked up at him. Her voice came out small. You need to see this yourself. Rowan ended the call mid-sentence and knelt beside them. He leaned in, and Mirai watched his face change, watched the color drain, watched his jaw lock so tight she could see the muscle jump beneath his skin. He didn't say anything for 5 full seconds. Then he stood, turned, and put both hands on top of his head, the same gesture people make right before they lose control. Mirai had seen her uncle do it once when he found out he'd been fired. Mr. Cade? Chennai's voice shook. Rowan didn't turn around. Get Vara, now. Chennai hesitated. Sir, now. She left. Fast. Ari pulled his knees to his chest on the stool, making himself as small as possible. Dad. I'm sorry. Rowan spun around. Sorry? Ari, you have nothing to be sorry for. But Vera said if I kept complaining, you'd think I was being difficult. The room went silent again, colder this time. Marai's eyes narrowed. She'd heard enough. Vera wasn't just ignoring the problem. She was covering it up, making Ari think he was the problem. Rowan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Doctor's 5 minutes away. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. Vera appeared in the doorway, calm as ever. That same soft smile, that same gentle voice. Mr. Cade, you called for me? Rowan didn't smile back. How long has Ari's head been bothering him? Vara blinked. I'm sorry? His head. The pain. The irritation. How long have you known about it? I didn't realize it was serious. Children complain about little things all the time. Rowan took one step toward her. Little things? Vara's smile faltered, just slightly. Mr. Cade, I don't understand what... Come here. She walked over slowly. Rowan pointed at Ari without saying a word. Vara leaned in, pretending to look closely. But Marai saw it. The way her eyes didn't actually focus. The way she pulled back too quickly. She already knew what was there. Oh my, Vara said, voice dripping with fake concern. I had no idea it was this bad. Rowan's voice went flat. You're lying. Vara straightened. Excuse me? You're lying. And I'm going to find out why. The door dripping with fake concern. I had no idea it was this bad. Rowan's voice went flat. You're lying. Vara straightened. Excuse me? You're lying. And I'm going to find out why. The doorbell rang. Rowan walked past Vara without another word and returned seconds later with 2 men in white coats. They moved fast, gloves already on, equipment in hand. One of them knelt beside Ari. Hey buddy, I'm Dr. Moss. I'm just going to take a look, okay? Ari nodded, eyes locked on his father. Dr. Moss parted the boy's hair, leaned in with a small light, and his expression shifted immediately. He glanced at his colleague. We need to get him to the clinic, now. How bad is it? Rowan asked. Dr. Moss stood, pulling off his gloves. Bad enough that I'm surprised he's been functioning at all. This is a severe infestation compounded by secondary infection. His scalp is inflamed, irritated, and if it spreads any further, we're looking at potential scarring. Rowan's hands curled into fists. Dr. Moss continued. The real question is how this went unnoticed for so long. This didn't happen overnight. All eyes turned to Vara. She stood perfectly still. Too still. Like someone who'd practiced this exact moment in her head. I check him every day, she said calmly. He never mentioned, he told you. Marai's voice cut through the room like glass. He told you it. Hurt, and you said he was being difficult. Vara's eyes snapped to her. Young lady, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, I do. Marai stood, shoulders back. Because he told me. Just now. He said you get mad when he complains. Rowan's voice dropped to a whisper. Is that true, Ari? Ari nodded, tears streaming down his face. And that's when Rowan broke. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a quiet, devastating collapse of a man who realized he'd failed the one person who mattered most. He turned to Vara and his voice came out like stone. You're done. Get out. Vara didn't move. Mr. Cade, I think you're overreacting. Get out. She left, finally. But Marai saw something in her eyes as she walked away. Not guilt, not shame, satisfaction, like she'd won something no one else understood yet. Dr. Moss began packing Ari's things. We need to move fast. I'll have a full treatment plan ready within the hour. Rowan nodded, then turned to Marai. He knelt so they were eye level. You saved my son's life. Marai shook her head. I just noticed. That's exactly what saved him. And in that moment, Rowan understood something he'd spent 43 years missing. Money didn't buy awareness. Power didn't buy empathy. And the people society overlooked were often the ones who saw everything. What do you think happens when the person you trust most becomes the person who hurts you? The clinic smelled like antiseptic and something else Marai couldn't name. Metal, maybe. Fear, definitely. She sat in the waiting room beside her mother while doctors worked on Ari behind closed doors. Shanae kept twisting her hands together. Baby, you did good. But we might lose this job. Marai didn't look up. He was hurting, Mama. I know, I'm just saying. Rich people don't like being told they missed something. But Rowan wasn't like that. At least not today. He paced the hallway outside the treatment room, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and sharp. I want every piece of footage from the last 6 months, every room, every interaction, and I want it in my inbox in 20 minutes. He hung up, dialed again immediately. It's Cade. I need a full background workup on Vara Lindsay. Employment history, social media, everything, and I need it yesterday. Another hang-up, another call. Marai watched him through the glass partition. This wasn't the calm billionaire from the penthouse. This was someone unraveling in real time, held together only by rage and purpose. The treatment room door opened. Dr. Moss stepped out, pulling off gloves. He's stable. We've started treatment and sedated him lightly so he can rest. The infestation was extensive, but we caught it before permanent damage. Rowan exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Can I see him? Give us 10 more minutes. Rowan nodded, then walked over to where Marai and Chennai sat. He lowered himself into the chair across from them, elbows on his knees. I need to ask you something, he said to Marai. When you looked at Ari, what made you check his head? Marai thought about it. The way he moved. He kept reaching for it, then stopping. Like it hurt to touch, but also hurt not to. Rowan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. 17 doctors. 23 specialists. And none of them noticed that. They weren't looking for it, Marai said simply. Why weren't they? Because they didn't believe him. Those 5 words hung in the air like an accusation, because they were one, against every adult who'd dismissed Ari's pain as behavioral, against every professional who'd written prescriptions for anxiety instead of looking closer, against Rowan himself for trusting a system that failed his son. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire face changed. Excuse me. He stood and walked to the far end of the hallway, putting the phone to his ear. Marai couldn't hear the words, but she could see his body language, the way his free hand balled into a fist, the way his shoulders went rigid. When he came back, his voice was different, colder. Security footage shows Vara checking Ari's scalp 3 weeks ago. She saw it, and she did nothing. Shania gasped. Why would she? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Dr. Moss appeared in the doorway. You can see him now. Rowan went in first. Marai stayed in her chair, but she could see through the window. Ari lay on a medical bed, eyes half closed, head wrapped in clean white bandages. Rowan sat beside him, holding his hand, saying something Marai couldn't hear. Whatever it was made. Ari nod, then cry, then smile just a little. Chennai squeezed Marai's shoulder. You did good, baby. But Marai wasn't thinking about that anymore. She was thinking about Vara, about the way she'd looked when Rowan confronted her, about the satisfaction in her eyes when she left. People didn't ignore something that bad by accident. They ignored it on purpose. And Marai wanted to know why. Rowan came back out 20 minutes later. He knelt in front of Marai one more time. I owe you more than I can ever repay, but I'm going to try. Marai shook her head. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. Because you saw my son when I didn't, and that's something I'll carry for the rest of my life. He stood, pulling out his phone again. This time, he handed Shania a business card. "This is my personal attorney. She'll be in touch about Ari's care moving forward. And about your employment." Shanae's eyes went wide. "Mr. Cade, I didn't mean to. You didn't do anything wrong. Your daughter saved my son. That's worth more than any job." He walked back toward Ari's room, then stopped, turned, around. "One more thing," he said to Marai. "How did you know to keep looking? Even after I walked in, even after everyone was watching?" Marai thought about it. Because he was still scared, and scared people don't lie about being hurt. Rowan nodded slowly, then he went back inside. Marai and her mother sat in silence for a long time. Outside, the city moved on like nothing had happened. But inside that clinic, everything had changed. Because trust, once broken, leaves marks deeper than any infestation ever could. And somewhere across the city, Vera sat in her apartment, scrolling through her phone, completely unaware that Rowan Cade was 3 hours away from finding out exactly who she really was. And why she'd let a 5-year-old boy suffer. Do you think people hurt others because they're hurting themselves? Drop your thoughts below. The doctor's words hit like a verdict. This should have been caught months ago. Rowan stood in the hallway outside Ari's room, phone clutched so tight his knuckles went white. Dr. Moss had just finished explaining the treatment plan. 6 weeks of medication, daily scalp treatments, possible scarring that might never fade. 6 weeks. His son had suffered for 6 months because adults failed him. Rowan's phone buzzed, a message from his head of security. 3 words. "Footage is ready." He didn't wait. He walked straight to his car, leaving Shania and Marai at the clinic with instructions to stay as long as they needed. The drive back to the penthouse took 12 minutes. Every second felt like an hour. His private office sat on the top floor, walls lined with monitors he rarely used, security footage from every corner of his home, archived and searchable. He'd installed the system 2 years ago after a break-in scare. Never thought he'd use it like this. He sat down, pulled up the interface, and typed in Vara's name. Hundreds of clips appeared. Dated. Time-stamped. Organized by room. He started with 3 weeks ago. The day security confirmed she'd checked Ari's head. The video loaded. Vara stood in Ari's bedroom, the boy sitting on his bed in pajamas. She parted his hair, leaned close, and her face changed. Just for a second. Long enough to see recognition. Then she smoothed his hair back down and smiled. "You're fine, sweetheart. Just dry scalp." Ari's voice came through the speakers, small and uncertain. "But it really hurts." "I know. But sometimes things hurt, and they're not serious. Your dad worries too much already. Let's not add to it, okay?" Rowan paused the video. His hands shook. She knew, and she lied to his face. To Ari's face. He scrolled back further. 2 months ago. Another clip. Vara in the bathroom, washing her hands. Ari stood in the doorway, crying. "It's getting worse." Vara dried her hands slowly, deliberately. "Ari, we've talked about this. You need to be tougher. Your father built an empire. He doesn't have time for complaints about itchy heads." Ari's face crumpled. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. Just try to be stronger. For him." Rowan stopped the video. He couldn't watch anymore. His chest felt like someone had reached in and squeezed. Vara hadn't just ignored the problem. She'd weaponized it. Used his son's pain to make him feel weak. Unworthy? Like asking for help was a burden. His phone rang. His attorney. "I have the background check," she said without greeting. "You're not going to like it. Tell me." Vara Lindsay. Real name Vara Copeland. She changed it 6 years ago after being fired from a family in Boston. Reason for termination. Neglect of a child in her care. The family chose not to press charges in exchange for her resignation and an NDA. Rowan closed his eyes. Why wasn't this in her background check? Because she used a different last name, and the family sealed the records. She's been moving between cities ever since, working under new identities. What else? Her social media is interesting. Private accounts under fake names, but we got in. She posts constantly about wealth inequality, rants about billionaires, calls them parasites, says they don't deserve their children. Rowan's jaw locked. Send me everything. He hung up and opened his laptop. The files came through seconds later. Screenshots of posts dating back 3 years. One caught his attention immediately. Rich people think money solves everything, but it can't buy awareness. It can't buy empathy. And when their perfect little worlds fall apart, they'll finally understand what the rest of us feel every day. Posted 4 months ago, right after she started working for him. Rowan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Vera hadn't just been negligent. She'd been deliberate, methodical. She'd watched his son suffer and felt justified doing it because she hated what Rowan represented. She'd turned a 5-year-old boy into a statement. His phone buzzed again. A text from Dr. Moss. "Aries asking for you." Rowan stood, grabbed his keys, and walked out. But his mind was already somewhere else, because now he had proof. And proof meant consequences. But consequences wouldn't undo the damage. Wouldn't erase the months Ari spent thinking he was the problem. Wouldn't give back the childhood his son lost. Rowan had money, he had power, but he never had awareness. And that cost him everything. Have you ever realized you were wrong about someone too late to fix it? Cameras don't lie. Rowan sat across from Detective Amara Jenkins in a downtown precinct that smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. He'd brought every piece of footage, every screenshot, every medical report documenting the timeline of Aries' suffering. Detective Jenkins watched the clips in silence, her expression unreadable. When the last one ended, she leaned back and crossed her arms. "This is child endangerment. Criminal negligence at minimum." "Can you arrest her?" Rowan asked. "We can bring her in for questioning. But I need you to understand something, Mr. Cade. Cases like this are hard to prosecute. Defense will argue she didn't cause the infestation, that she made a judgment call, that she didn't realize the severity." Rowan's voice went cold. "She saw it. She lied about it. She told my son to stop complaining. I believe you. But belief doesn't hold up in court without clear intent to harm. Then what do I do?" Detective Jenkins tapped the table. "You build a case. You get every medical professional involved to document the timeline. You prove she had knowledge and failed to act, and you hope the DA sees what I see." Rowan nodded slowly. "Do it." Jenkins made a call. 10